Hello viewers, I, Professor Parthankar Choudhury, Department of Ecology and Environmental Science, Assam University, Silchar, going to speak on religion and the environment. This lecture is organized by Northeast Science Movement under the banner of Vigyan Bharati. The talking points are science and religion, whether in conformity or otherwise. Conservation practices in India during the Vedic era. Excerpts from Shankho philosophy. Conservation practices in Buddhism. Vedic hymns during puja. Photosynthesis, the role of science, and Surya Pranam mantra, the similarity. Conservation in sacred group. Evolution and creation. So these are the 8 different points on which I'll talk one by one. Coming to the first is science and religion. Science and religion are often thought of being at odds on many issues. However, on the question of the environment, there is a widespread agreement. From Buddhism to Christianity to Hinduism to Islam, various faiths acknowledge the need for environmental stewardship, and their holy texts urge upon for the protection of the earth, environment, and the biodiversity. Conservation practices in India during the past eras. India is the home of Vedic culture, which is over 5,000 years old, and the Pancha Mahayajna, the 5 great sacrifices, has been a vital part of this culture. The Pancha Mahayajnas are Brahma Yajna, Deva Yajna, Pitra Yajna, Atithi Yajna, and Balivashya Deva Yajna. For protecting the environment, the Vedic culture has listed these 5 yajnas or the sacrifices, which is to be performed dutifully, and the result is enrichment of the absolute environment, including one's mind, body, society, atmosphere, relationships, and the fellow species. As Indians, we should always keep these 5 principles in our mind and mold our children such that they understand its importance, our culture, and perform these 5 major duties without fail. What are these 5 different yajnas? Number 1 is Brahma Yajna, which relates to the daily prayer to the Almighty and reading Vedas and other spiritual scriptures. Deva Yajna is about performing sacrifices to Devas, the heavens. In short, Deva Yajna promised the purity of one's intellect, mind, body, and most importantly, the atmosphere. Pitra Yajna, as it means, is nothing but giving due respect and taking adequate care of one's parents and elders of the family. Atithi Yajna, as the name suggests, pertains to respecting and serving one's visitors. Balivashya Deva Yajna requires that one should be compassionate and responsible to all other fellow species. This is the important among all these 5 yajanas. If the human beings had executed these yajanas dutifully, then the words like extinct species, endangered species would not have entered into our dictionary, would not have entered into our lexicon. Coming to the next is Shankho philosophy, the Purusha and Prakriti, the dualistic concept. It is the classical yoga of Yoga Sutras and is having dualistic concept. The dualistic concepts are the concept of Purusha and the Prakriti. So the Purusha and Prakriti, if it is explained, can be compared with the clockmaker and the clock. The clockmaker, what he does, that he takes a idea that how the clock should be, what will be the size of the dial, what should be the color of the dial, what should be the size of the sticks, and accordingly, as per his thinking, the manifestation is the clock. Similarly, the Purusha, whatever he thinks, the manifestation of his thinking is the Prakriti. So if he thinks in a good sense for betterment, the manifestation, the result will be good. If he thinks in a bad sense, then obviously the damage will take place. Purusha is the soul, the self, the pure consciousness, and the only source of consciousness. The word literally means man, and Prakriti, which is created. It, it is nature in all her aspects. Prakriti literally means creatix. Creatix as per concept of the creator. Here creator is the Purusha. Since Purusha is pure consciousness, it follows that Prakriti is unconscious. So Prakriti is everything that is changing. And Prakriti is not just the physical aspect of the universe that we can sense. It is our very sense themselves, our thoughts, memories, desire, and even our intelligence. Consciousness resides only in Purusha, or literally speaking, man here. So we have come to know that as per thinking of the Purusha, the manifestation is the Prakriti. Better the Purusha thinks, better will be the manifestation. Coming to the next is uh, conservation in Buddhist philosophy. During the tenure from Vedic saints, the rishis to Lord Buddha, it has been realized that any mental or physical imbalance in any human subject might cause damage to the nature and the environment. So, according to this, they laid down the model code of conduct for the inhabitants of nature and the inanimate objects. This has been the basic foundation stone so far as the present day conservation or Samrakshan is concerned. During the tenure of Buddha, the ecological problem, the wildlife related problem, the environment related problems were not known. But with his foresight, he could experience that. Lord Buddha could experience that, could realize that any physical or mental imbalance in any human subject might cause damage to the environment around him. So he laid down the rules of conduct for human beings, for individuals, both for householders and for the recluse. These rules are laid down in the book which is known as Vinaya Pitaka. So Vinaya Pitaka teaches us that felling out of any trees or cutting roots, their branches would be harmful, is a sin. And there are many living things, including microorganisms, earthworms, etc., on the various strata of the ecosystem. And thinking in this line, he advised his bhikkhus, the Buddhist monks, that the Buddhist monks during a long spell of their time are required to stand in the forests. So he advised the bhikkhus, the monks, not to live inside the forest, to live in the outskirts of the forest, so that if they live inside the forest, there may be any damage to the variety of life forms which are living within the forest. It is in the same way that nobody during present day are allowed to live or allowed to stay within the national park, within the sanctuary area. Buddhist concept in maintaining biodiversity. For Buddha, the perfect man is one who abstains from injury to seed life and plant life. He said, even the branch of a tree giving us shelter should not be destroyed. To keep away from destroying the natural environment, Buddha gave sermons and formulated various rules. In the Vinaya Pitaka, we find mention about Patimokkha. Patimokkha, as per present terminology is synonymous to prayashchitta. So if any monk had done any foul thing, he or um, he was given punishment, and the mention about the type of punishment is mentioned in the Vinaya Pitaka, and that type of offense is known as patichya offense. Uh, Quotes from different religious texts. So if it is seen through the various religion, it will be found that almost all the religions uh, they they vouch for nature conservation, they vouch for environment conservation, and nowhere environmental damage was considered as a good work. Uh, if we look at the various religion, Baha'i religion first, which is a religion based in Iran, it says nature is God's will and is its expression in and through the contingent world. Buddhism, it says our ancestors viewed the earth as rich and bountiful, which it is. Many people in the past also saw nature as inexhaustibly sustainable, which we now know is the case only if we care for it. Christianity. We must treat nature with the same awe and wonder that we preserve for human beings. And we do not need this insight in order to believe in God or to prove his existence. We need it to breathe. We need it for us simply to be in a state of living. Confucianism. It says sustainable, harmonious relationship between the human species and nature is not merely an abstract ideal, but a concrete guide for practical living. Hinduism. There is an inseparable bond between man and nature. For man, there cannot be an existence removed from nature. Islam. Devote thyself single-mindedly to the faith and thus follow the nature designed by Allah, the nature according to which He has fashioned mankind. There is no altering the creation of Allah. It is mentioned in the Quran. Jainism. Do not injure, abuse, oppress, enslave, insult, torment, torture, or kill any creature or living being. Judaism, a religion of Middle East during the Bronze Age. It says, and God said, behold, I have given you every herb yielding seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for food. Coming to the next, the Shintoism, a religion of 6th century AD, which was in China. It says, I will give over to my child the rice ears of the sacred garden, of which I partake in the plain of high heaven. Sikhism, you yourself created the universe and you are pleased. You yourself, the bumblebee, the flower, the fruits, and the tree. It is mentioned in the Guru Granth Sahib. Taoism, it is a religion of ancient China. It says, this original nature is the eternal law. To know the nature's law is to be enlightened. He who is ignorant of the nature's law shall act recklessly and thus will invite misfortune. To know the constant law of nature is to be generous. Being generous, one is impartial. Being impartial, one is the sovereign. And sovereign is the nature itself. We have recently seen that Durga Puja has over, and during the Durga Puja, we worship Goddess Durga, Lord Shiva, Lakshmi, Saraswati, uh, Lord Ganesha, and Kartika. We have also seen that along with each and every god and goddesses, different animals are there. The Lord Shiva is accompanied by bull. Goddess Durga is accompanied by lion. Mahishasur is accompanied by this buffalo. Lakshmi is accompanied by this owl. This swan is accompanied by Saraswati. Peacock with Kartika, and Lord Ganesha is accompanied by a rat. Now, during the worship of goddess Durga and all other god and goddesses, all these animals are also worshipped. Separate Vedic hymns are there for worshipping each and every animal. Coming to the contribution of the sun in our environment ecosystem, we must say that sun is the source of all energy. Everybody admits that sun is the source of all energy, and the solar radiation that reaches to the surface of the earth, it never reaches 100%. Some percentage of the solar energy is absorbed uh, by the dust. Some are scattered, some are reflected back, and a percentage, we must say 40% or 50% of the radiation reaches to the earth. So based on the radiation from the sun, the photosynthetic activities take place, and since photosynthetic activities take place, the world or the ecosystem, the food chain, the food web, etc. continues. Now, producer, by the process of photosynthesis, it produces green component. The producers are consumed by the herbivores. The herbivores are consumed by the carnivores, the grasses, the rabbits, and the eagle. So this is a simple food chain, and large number of food chain combined together, a food web is formed like this. Now, coming to the basic concept of photosynthesis, it is the process by which the autotrophic organisms, means organisms having the chlorophyll component in them, they use light energy to make sugar and oxygen from carbon dioxide and water. So in the process of binding carbon dioxide and water in presence of light energy, carbohydrate and oxygen is formed. Now, the entire activity called photosynthesis, and it takes place in the presence of light which is coming from the sun. Uh, Ingredients and composition of photosynthesis is that uh, carbon dioxide, it enters to the leaf through stomata, water enters from the root through the pipes, and carbon dioxide and water bound together, sugar is formed and oxygen is formed. Now, in these cases, we find that sun or the solar radiation is important. Without the solar radiation, the photosynthesis cannot take place. And in the solar radiation, this visible light, VIBGR, we all know, so visible light is used. Now, as we have seen that without the sun, photosynthesis cannot take place. And if photosynthesis cannot take place, then food chain cannot continue, food web cannot continue. Thus, we see that sun is playing a pivot role in maintaining the food chain or in maintaining the ecological balance. Keeping this in the backdrop, our ancestors, the Vedic saints, they they had kept the sun at the top of all affairs. And the Vedic hymn, it says that Jaba Kushuma Shankashang Kaishyapayang Mahadyutim Dhantaring Sarva Papagnam Pranotashmi Divakaro, which means that Jaba Kushuma Shankashang means one whose radiance resembles the bright color of hibiscus pollen grain, the China rose. The Kaishyapayang means the sun, the Surya is considered as the son of, say, Kaishyapa. So Mahadyutim means one with immense brightness or brilliance. Dhantaring means he who destroys all darkness, sun who destroys all darkness. Sharva Papagna means one who destroys all sins. Uh, Pranatashmi means I salute, I bow in front of you. Dibakaram, another name of sun. So in front of sun, in front of Dibakar, I salute. So here is an approximate translation of the Vedic hymn. Om, I humbly bow and salute him whose color resembles the pollen grains of the hibiscus flower, the brilliantly shining son of Sri Kashyapa, who is the destroyer of all evil, darkness, ignorance, and sins, Son, the life and delight giver, I bow before you. There is another important Vedic hymn on sun, Om Ehi Shurya Deva Sahasrangshat Tejorashi Jagatpate Mang Bhakta Anukampaya Vihonardham Divakaro. Om Surjaya Namo, Om Adityaya Namo, Om Namo Bhaskaraya Namo. These are the synonyms for Surya, the sun. So, uh, as we have seen that in the case of photosynthesis, the sun is playing a pivot role, and similarly, keeping this, our ancestors, our Vedic philosophy, they had kept the sun on that it is playing a good role, and therefore sun was given all importance. Another concept, the sacred group concept, which also is attached to religious belief, and this sacred group concept, it helps in biodiversity conservation to a large extent. The traditional and indigenous communities in India are of the religious belief that medicinal groups and plants are sacred in nature. Sacred groups are patches of trees on forest land that are protected communally with a religious zeal and connotations. These forest areas have been protected since ages by traditional societies and indigenous communities with their socio-cultural and religious practices. Sacred groups, as a rule, are treated piously. Sacred trees are prohibited from cutting and not axed except there is pressing need like construction of temple or for any other religious purposes. Uh, they are forest fragments uh, varying in size between zero point 0.5 to 500 hectares, which has already been said, these are protected by religious communities. And in India, about 15,000 sacred groups are there in different parts of the country. Now, hunting and logging are totally banned within the sacred groups. Developmental activities are also not allowed, and these sacred groups are considered as the mini forest protected under the umbrella of religion. And within this mini forest, rich diversity of plants, rich diversity of animals naturally occur. Nobody is anything damaged to these organisms, plants and the animals. Coming to the next concept is evolution and creation. Evolution and creation, whether these are same or different, whether there is any similarity or dissimilarity, what evolution is, what creation is. Let us see this thing. Evolution, as we know, gradual change with modification. It can be a difficult concept for people to come to terms with, especially if they do not have much experience with the knowledges of the life science. Whether evolution is a concept or whether it is a fact or theory, or whether evolution is both a fact or a theory, or it is just an imagination. Does evolution explain the origin of life or not? These are the important questions on which we'll ponder sometime in the coming slides, and we'll be able to understand and answer. What creationism is, again, another question. Creationism is belief that universe was created by a deity of some sort. But after that, there is quite a lot of variety among creationists as to just what they believe and why they believe so. There is argument among themselves. People may lump all creationists together in one group, but it is important to understand where they differ and why. The creationists who believe in creation, they are again n number of types, and all creationist groups. It is not wise to bring all creationist group under one umbrella, because there are some creationists which logically you cannot accept. On the other hand, there are some other creationists whose logic is partially acceptable. I am elaborating these points in the next slide. Before that, uh, let us look at some facts and figures. More than 4 out of 10 Americans, they believe in creationism. Percent of Americans saying the following statement came closest to their views on the origin and development of human beings. 42% of the Americans believe that God created humans in present form within the last 10,000 years. 31% believe that humans evolved with God guiding. That means what? 73%, 42 plus 31, 73% of the American believe that in the creation of the human beings, God has direct role. On the other hand, 19% of the American believe that humans evolved, but God had no part in the process. This information has been obtained from the Huffington Post. Now, evolution and religion. Very often, it seems that evolution and religion or religious beliefs are antithetic. However, the fact that some religions and some religious dogmas are not entirely compatible with evolutionary biology does not mean that uh, the same must be true for all religions in general. That means in some cases it may be partially compatible. Therefore, those religions which believe in partial compatibility, so they are having some scientific bent of mind, or they are taking evolution in cognizance. If we look at the Genesis concept, we see, we'll find that on sixth day the planet Earth was created and everything came into being on sixth day. To what extent this is acceptable, I leave the matter up to you. According to this Genesis concept, it is said that on day one, the earth, space, time, and the light was created. And on the day two, atmosphere was created. On day three, dry land and plants came into being. On day four, sun, moon, and stars came. Day five, sea and the flying creatures were available. And on the day six, the land animals and human beings came. So this is the concept as preached by Genesis 1. Now, on the other hand, if we look into our Hindu philosophy, the concept of Hindu Trinity is there, which represents the manifestation of supreme reality through three forms: the Brahma, the creation or the creator, the Vishnu, the preservation or the preservator, and the Shiva, the destroyer or who destroys everything. So the collective role played by Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, uh, it is the or it forms the backbone of the Hindu Trinity. According to Hindu Trinity, there are three faces of divine God, three cosmic functions of the Supreme Lord, What are these three cosmic functions? One is creation, which is attributed to Brahma, preservation attributed to Lord Vishnu, and dissolution or destruction attributed to Lord Shiva. So one is generator, Brahma, one is operator, Vishnu, one is destroyer or dissolutionist. So the sum total of the contribution of our all these three gods, uh, it forms the totality. That means this generator plus operator plus destroyer are the three constituents of the God, what Bhagavan, what we believe. So with this, I have come to an end of this presentation. Thank you all for patient hearing. If there is any question, you may call me or text me in WhatsApp, or you can write me at the mail ID given. Thank you once again.